Welcome back to Constructive Talks and We Speak Forward. This is a space where we bring language to experiences people are living but do not always have words for. And today's conversation is one of those topics that a lot of people feel but rarely get acknowledged for, Brian.
Thanks, Gail. Excited to dive into today's topic, and wherever you are listening from, we want you to feel like you are part of this conversation, not just hearing it, but recognizing yourself in it. Because what we are talking about today is something many people carry quietly.
Today we are talking about emotional labor and invisible responsibilities. The things you do, the things you hold, and the things you manage that nobody assigned but somehow became yours.
Yes, that is what makes it heavy. It is not written down, it is not always recognized, and it is rarely balanced. But it is real, and it takes energy every single day.
It's fascinating, isn't it? I think emotional labor often starts with being aware. You notice what people need, you sense what is off, and you step in before anything is even said. That awareness becomes a habit.
Right, and over time, that habit becomes an expectation. People begin to rely on you to read the room, manage the energy, and hold things together. Not because they asked you directly, but because you have always done it.
So now you are not just present, you are processing. You are tracking moods, adjusting conversations, and making sure things do not escalate. That is work, even if nobody calls it that.
Exactly. And the challenge is, it is invisible work. There is no checklist, no credit, no acknowledgement that matches the effort. It just becomes part of who people think you are.
Which means if you stop doing it, people notice immediately. But when you're doing it consistently, it feels normal to them. That imbalance is what makes it exhausting.
Because you are carrying something that others are benefiting from without always realizing the cost. That is how people end up drained without being able to clearly explain why.
So you're not just there anymore, you're constantly managing moods. Let's talk about that feeling. Being tired, but not from one specific task. It is the accumulation of constantly being on, emotionally available, and mentally engaged for others.
And it shows up in small moments. Feeling irritated when you are asked for one more thing, feeling overwhelmed by simple conversations, or needing space but not knowing how to ask for it.
That is the weight of invisible responsibility. It is not one big thing. It is 100 small things that add up over time. And because each one feels small, you do not always give yourself permission to address it.
But those small things are real. Managing conversations, keeping peace, supporting others, anticipating needs, that takes energy, and if it is not balanced, it will eventually take a toll.
I think a lot of people confuse emotional labor with personality. They say, that is just who I am. I am caring. I am supportive. And while that may be true, it does not mean it should come at the cost of yourself.
That is a key distinction. Being caring is a strength, but overextending that strength without boundaries turns it into depletion. What makes you valuable should not be what drains you completely.
Sometimes the environment reinforces it. If you are the one who always steps in, people will continue to step back, not out of intention, but out of habit.
Which means you end up carrying more, simply because you can. And over time, can turns into will, and will turns into expected.
That expectation becomes the invisible agreement. Nobody says it out loud, but it is understood. You will handle it, you will figure it out, you will keep things together.
When you do not, it feels like something is off. Not just for others, but for you too, because you have internalized that role. That is where the pressure becomes internal.
So now you are not just responding to others, you are responding to your own expectations of yourself. You feel like you should be able to handle it, even when you are tired.
And that type of internal pressure is heavy, because it does not turn off. Even when you are alone, you are still thinking, still processing, still carrying.
That is why rest does not always feel like rest. Your body may be still, but your mind is still working. You are replaying conversations, anticipating situations, or thinking about what needs to be done next.
This kind of emotional labor continuing even in silence. It does not stop when the moment ends. It follows you. That is why people feel exhausted, even when they have not done anything physically demanding.
Let's talk about boundaries for a moment, because this is where people struggle. When you have been the one who carries, setting boundaries can feel uncomfortable.
It can feel like you are changing who you are, like you are becoming less caring or less available. But in reality, you are becoming more balanced.
Balance is always necessary for sustainability. You cannot keep pouring from a place that is not being replenished. Eventually, something has to give.
That is why awareness matters. You have to recognize what you are carrying that was never clearly assigned, because once you see it, you can start making different choices.
Those choices do not have to be extreme. They can be small, intentional shifts. Taking a moment before responding, asking for support, or choosing not to take on something automatically.
And those small shifts create space. Space to breathe, space to think, space to reconnect with yourself. That space is what many people have been missing.
In that space, you start to realize that not everything requires your involvement. Not every situation needs your energy. Some things can exist without you holding them.
And that realization is freeing, but it can also feel unfamiliar, because you are used to being needed. And when you step back, it changes how you experience yourself.
But being needed is not the same as being valued. That is an important distinction. You can be valued for who you are, not just for what you do.
Once you begin to understand that, you stop tying your worth to your availability. You begin to see yourself outside of what you provide to others.
That is where real balance baby steps begins. Supporting others without losing yourself. Being present without being consumed.
This kind of presence feels different. It is not heavy, it is intentional. It comes from choice, not obligation.
And making small, intentional choices shifts that dynamic. So maybe the question to ask is this: where am I carrying something that nobody asked me to carry, but I took on anyway?
Once you answer that, ask yourself if it still aligns. Because just because you have been carrying it does not mean you have to continue.
Those small shifts create essential space to breathe and reconnect.
Space to realize not everything needs your energy, your voice, or your involvement.
That realization is freeing but unfamiliar because being needed feels essential.
But being needed isn't the same as being truly valued.
You can be valued for who you are, not just what you do.
And that's the start of balance, supporting others without losing yourself.
Being present purposely, not because you feel obligated.
That presence becomes light instead of heavy, chosen, not required.
So here's a question. What are you carrying that no one asked you to?
Once you answer that, ask yourself if it still aligns. Because just because you have been carrying it does not mean you have to continue.
Letting go does not mean you stop caring. It means you start caring about yourself in the same way you care about others.
And that shift changes everything, because now your energy is not constantly depleted. It is balanced, intentional, and sustainable.
If something in this conversation felt familiar, take a moment with it. That recognition is important. It is the first step in understanding what you have been carrying.
That recognition is the first real step to shifting your load.
Give yourself permission to pause, reflect, and adjust where needed. You do not have to keep doing everything the same way just because you always have.
You don't have to keep doing everything the same way forever, because trying to do things the same way may not be the right way for your life journey. And that's why conversations like this are so important. They give voice to the unspoken.
Right? Emotional labor and invisible responsibilities are things people carry quietly, feeling the weight but rarely discussing it openly.
It's a shared experience across many environments like workplaces, homes, social circles, but it remains largely invisible.
That invisibility is part of the challenge because if no one sees it, no one acknowledges it, and that can make it feel isolating.
Exactly. And yet the effort is real, the energy spent is real, it accumulates and impacts well-being.
I like how you mentioned accumulation. It's not one big task, but a series of small, constant attentions and adjustments.
Those small attentions add up, monitoring moods, managing conflicts before they arise, remembering details others forget.
And often these acts are done without complaint, out of care or habit, which makes it harder to recognize as labor.
It's almost paradoxical. The more care you show, the more invisible the work becomes, because it's expected.
Yes, and that expectation can become a silent contract where you feel obligated without having agreed.
That internalized obligation can be a heavy burden, especially when the external world doesn't acknowledge it.
And that's where exhaustion creeps in. not physical exhaustion from one task, but emotional and mental fatigue from constant vigilance.
That's why rest often feels elusive. Even when you're physically resting, your mind keeps working.
It's the mental replaying, anticipating, and worrying that keeps the emotional labor ongoing.
So then setting boundaries becomes crucial. But it's also really hard because it feels like you're changing your nature.
True, but setting boundaries isn't about becoming less caring. It's about protecting your capacity to care sustainably.
It's about balance, caring without depletion, supporting others without losing yourself.
And that balance begins with awareness, recognizing what you've been carrying that wasn't explicitly yours to carry.
Once you see it, you can choose differently. You can decide when to engage and when to step back.
Small changes create peaceful spaces, space to breathe, to reflect, to reconnect with yourself.
And in that space, you realize that your worth is not tied solely to what you provide or how much you give.
That's a powerful realization, being valued for who you are, not just what you do or how you make others feel.
And that realization transforms presence from obligation into choice, making your presence light and sustainable. That shift from depletion to balance can change everything about how you experience your relationships and your life.
That's a powerful note to end on. Thanks for joining us today, Brian. We appreciate you for being here, for listening, and for allowing yourself to reflect honestly. This is Constructive Talks, and we speak forward, where your voice matters and your experience is valid.
Thank you, Gail. It's been great exploring this with you.
Everyone, please like, subscribe, and share this channel with those you care for most. This is an important conversation.
Take care of yourself, and remember, join us here at Constructive Talks and We Speak Forward for our weekly conversations.